hello, hello, greets and good evening once again,
And hello,
one and all. Peace. Namaste. Hey, welcome. Thank you for your kind visit. I invite you into my dimension. In today's episode, I will introduce you to yet another fascinating book that I've been reading for the last couple of days now. And what really inspired me to share this one is the synchronicity, because there are no coincidences, only synchronicities. And this synchronicity tied into the last video I uploaded, in which I shared some deep thoughts that were inspired by an episode on a different channel that I'm subscribed to, what the topic was, and I was inspired during my regular workout routine. So I shared that. You can check it out. It's about how thoughts kind of manifest into what we see. So that is pretty much exactly what this book is about. Without further ado, I shall commence with this introduction. So class, please sit down. Thank you. As you saw in the beginning, now the name of this book, as you saw in the introduction or at the beginning of this video, is called As a Man Thinketh. It's written by James Allen, and no, it's not a sexist thing, so please let's move our thoughts away from that. It applies to how we think, and of course this was written back in the day when we weren't going through so many issues with how we relate with each other and whatnot, so the term man was used. Now it does apply to all humans, and I'm hesitant to use the word person because person also has its own connotations that we'll get into in another video, but if you have the time, please look it up. Apparently corporations are persons as well, and this is why, you know, corporations pleasing their shareholders puts us in a rather precarious position in the workforce. Anyways, that's for another video. For this one, let's get back to the point at hand. So, thoughts matter. Now, as we move more and more forward into the fifth dimension, or into another way of thinking about things, into a more love-based, a more open, a more compassionate way of thinking about things with each other, we will start crossing paths with more and more information about how we can use our thoughts to make things happen in the manifest world. Okay, it's not woo-woo magic. From practice, from experience, I can attest to this really being effective, and once we can gain control of our thoughts, we can definitely change, one, how we interact with our environment, and by doing so we create a chain reaction in terms of how the environment then unfolds for us. So, as we think it, thoughts matter, so we need to become conscious of the types of things we are saying to ourselves, and then the types of things, the way, the tone, the words and whatnot that we are saying out loud. Because in the beginning, the Great One spoke, and there was, right? There was light, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot more to that than meets the eye or the ear, and it's not really the way it's presented to us. There's a lot of reality or a lot of science in teachings from the Bible, for example, and I'm sure from other great books as well. But it's really interesting how the Bible is being thrashed these days, and it's concerning because that is a really cool book. It's not just a holy book or a religious book. It's a really informative book. Basic instructions before leaving Earth. Let that resonate. Alright, so this is one one of these books that contains great, deep knowledge, wisdom, inspirations, and things that will make you say, Mind is the master power that molds and makes. And man, or we are mind. And evermore he takes the tool of thought, and shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass. Right? So ever notice how sometimes you're thinking about someone, they pop up somewhere, or you're thinking, oh my god, something really bad is going to happen, and then it happens? Well, this is not by happenstance. This is because we are contributing to these things becoming manifest. Okay. This inspirational classic draws its title from the book of Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Self-taught British philosopher and author James Allen, a pioneer. Self-taught British philosopher and author James Allen, a pioneer of the self-help movement, published this volume a century ago, and since then millions have responded to its message of positive thinking as the key to improved health, purpose, achievement, ideals, and serenity. Now, positive thinking is a very loaded terms nowadays. There's a lot wrapped up in there. It's not all about thinking happy thoughts or thinking everything is rainbows and lollipops and unicorns and so on and so forth. It's really not that. It's more about gaining control of your thoughts, putting them in order, and using your power of thought, or our power of thought, to present and to help create circumstances that are helpful to each other, and as compared to just lashing out with reactions and creating chaos. Now, of course, as we all grow up, we go through different phases, and I know for myself, I wasn't always this awesome, cool person. Well, yes, I was awesome and cool, but not as controlled and collected and wise, or aware of things as I am now. I had to go through some pretty crazy things, and deal with some sink or swim moments in order to get to where I am now. So, having reflected on this, I feel it's very important to share experiences and knowledge with each other so we can keep helping each other climb the ladder of evolution, right? And to help each other become better beings and become better aware of how we work, basically. So, this is another one of these books that helps us to do this. A word from the author. So I've tried to make the book simple so that all can easily grasp and follow its teachings and put into practice the methods which it advises. It shows how, in our own thought world, we hold the key to every condition, good or bad, that enters into our life, and that by working patiently and intelligently upon our thoughts, we may remake our life and transform our circumstances. So if that doesn't pique your curiosity, I'll delve in a little deeper. It's a pretty short read, and what's really cool about this book is that it's broken down into readings, or affirmations, if you may. They're not really affirmations, it's insights that it's morning thoughts, how to help train, focus thoughts during the morning, and then evening thoughts as well. And it's further broken down into day one morning thoughts, and then day one evening thoughts. Now, being the avid reader, that I am not patient enough to read this day by day. I've already made it well into the mid-teens, so I'm a little ahead of you. And I'd really love to read pretty much the entire book to you so far, but we can't do that. So I'll just read you excerpts. Now, this little book is not meant to be a detailed essay on the power of thought. It is rather meant to be filled with suggestions on how we can approach each day and evening, right? So that we may discover truth for ourselves, basically. We ourselves are maker of ourselves. They themselves are makers of themselves by virtue of the thoughts which we choose and encourage. Mind is the master weaver, both of the inner garment of character and the outer garment of circumstance. And that what we may have woven in ignorance and pain, we may now weave into enlightenment and happiness. Okay, so thought and character. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Not only embraces the whole of a man's being, or a whole of our being, but is so comprehensive that it reaches out to every condition and circumstance of our life. We are literally what we think, our character being the complete sum of our thoughts. Just like a plant springs from a seed and could not be without it, so every act that we do springs from the hidden seeds of thought and could not have appeared without them. Act is the blossom of thought, and joy and suffering are its fruits. Thus do we garner in the sweet and bitter fruitage of our own husbandry. So some of the language is pretty old, haven't been written about 100 years ago, but that's okay, we can stretch ourselves by reading it. Okay. We are a growth by the law of nature. We grow by the law of nature, and we are not creations of an artificial force. And cause and effect is as absolute and undeviating in the hidden realm of thought as in the world of visible and material things. A noble and godlike character is not a thing of favor or chance, but is the natural result of continued effort in right thinking. The effect of long cherished association with godlike thought. Now what that means is not thinking pious religious thought, but authentic, pure, true. If you're going to think something evil, at least think it truly, you know what I mean? Like honestly, and not wishy-washy. This is why evil villains are so powerful, because they're very convicted in their way of thinking, right? They're very goal-oriented. So those of us who want to be opposites of evil villains, well, we need to be as convicted in our ways as well. We need to be as focused as well. And I think many of us take the way we think for granted and think we don't have control over it. It's just what happens, like the wind blows. But the more that I'm learning, the more I'd like to share with you that this is not true, and that we do have control if we choose to go that way, you know what I mean? An ignoble or bestial character, by the same process, is the result of the continued harboring of groveling thoughts. So what springs to mind is Schmiegel from Lord of the Rings. And I'm sure some of us can relate to that type of needy, grovelly, precious voice that can whisper from behind our, from the back of our mind sometimes. But the more we can take control of that, the more we rise into our higher selves and godlike ways of thinking. So we are made or unmade by ourselves. In the armory of thoughts we forge the weapons by which we destroy ourselves. We also fashion the tools with which we build for ourselves heavenly mansions of joy and strength and peace. By the right choice and true application of thought, we ascend to the divine perfection level of things. By the abuse and wrong application of thoughts, we descend below the level of the beast. Between these two extremes are all of the levels and grades of character in between, and we are their maker and master. Of all the beautiful truths pertaining to the soul which have been restored and brought to light in this age, none is more gladdening or fruitful of divine promise and confidence than this, that we are the master of thought, the molder of character, and the maker and shaper of conditions, environment, and destiny. Our mind's ability may be likened to a garden, which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild. But whether cultivated or neglected, it must and will bring forth. If no useful seeds are put into it, then an abundance of useless weed seeds will fall into it and will continue to produce their kind. Just as a gardener cultivates their plot, keeping it free from weeds and growing the flowers and fruits which they require, so may we tend to the garden of our mind, weeding out all of the useless, impure, inauthentic thoughts and cultivating toward perfection the flowers and fruits of right, useful, and helpful thoughts. By pursuing this process, we sooner or later discover that we are the master gardener of our soul, the director of our life. We also reveal within ourselves the laws of thought, and then we begin to comprehend with ever-increasing accuracy how thought forces and mind elements operate in the shaping of our character, circumstances, and destiny. Thought and character are one, and as character can only manifest and discover itself through environment and circumstance, the outer conditions of a person's life will always be found to be harmoniously related to our inner state. If we're feeling chaotic and chaos and unsettled inside, well, this will be reflected in how we perceive the environment around us. See what happens there? What happens inside of us has an effect on how we then perceive what we're looking at. This is why I've noted here, be mindful, and when it's challenging to feel centered, we need to remember to breathe and count, right? It's very simple, and I learned this firsthand as well after going through another challenging day a couple of years ago at work where it was just pure chaos, and I felt I had lost my center, I'd lost my faith in humanity. It was pretty bad, and I came home and I found a video that reminded me to count and breathe, and it only took 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, and I was back to myself. It was pretty awesome. So we are We are where we are as a result of the thoughts that we harbor and nurture and mull around in our minds, and none of it is by chance, right? It's something that we create, and again, it's something that I realized some of the craziness that I've gone through, like, if I thought it out a little bit differently, perhaps, for sure, it would have taken another path. So I am practicing what I preach and preaching what I practice, and hopefully this will help inspire you to take a look at this book sometime. The soul attracts that which it secretly harbors, that which it loves, and also that which it fears. It reaches the height of the cherished aspirations, and it falls to the level of the unchastened desires, and circumstances are the means by which the soul receives its own. So like energy attracts like energy, right? We're taught to believe that opposites attract, and that creates harmony and whatnot, and sure, on some levels that's true, but in terms of how our spirits operate, or our energies and consciousnesses, if that's a word, we gravitate towards what we're in affinity with, or what we resonate with. The outer world of circumstance shapes itself to the inner world of thought, and both pleasant and unpleasant external conditions are factors which make for the ultimate good of the individual. As the reaper of our own harvest, we learn both by suffering and bliss. Circumstances do not make us. Instead, they reveal to us who we are. Even at birth, the soul comes into its own, and through every step of its earthly pilgrimage, it attracts those combinations of conditions which reveal itself, which are the reflections of its own purity and impurity, its strength and weakness. We do not attract that which we want, but rather that which we are. Our whims and fancies and ambitions are thwarted at every step, but our innermost thoughts and desires are fed with our own food, be it foul or clean. Circumstances, of course, are usually very complicated, and thoughts are deeply rooted. And the conditions of happiness vary so vastly with individuals that our entire soul condition, although this may be known to ourselves, cannot be judged by another from the external aspect of their life alone. One might be honest in certain directions, yet suffer privations. It is pleasing to human vanity to believe that one suffers because of one's virtue, but not until one has extirpated every sickly, bitter, and impure thought from their mind and washed every sinful stain from their soul can they be in a position to know and declare that their sufferings are the result of their good and not their bad qualities. Suffering is always the effect of wrong thought in some direction. It is an indication that the individual is out of harmony with their self, with the law of their being. The sole and supreme use of suffering is to purify, to burn out all of the useless and impure stuff inside. And this I can really, I truly resonate with, having gone through my own dark night of the soul, and I can remember the experience as clear as day. I was lying on my bed with a broken heart. I had just gone through the most devastating heartbreak I'd ever experienced, and wondering what my life meant at that point, and so on and so forth. And I was bawling my eyes out all by myself, and I remember at one point, I guess I stopped crying, and it was just, I'd been pondering, like, can we actually die from a broken heart? Has this ever happened? And what's the point of going on if all that I had built up before, the life that I was planning with this other person and whatnot, it was all gone, and the carpet was pulled out from under my feet, and so on and so forth. And there I was, lying in bed, pondering all of this, and all of a sudden feeling like waves of energy were just pouring out of me, and it just being burnt away, and I'd never experienced anything like that. And when I came out of it, I felt so much lighter and more in connection with the person I used to be. Because sometimes this is what happens, we lose ourselves in relationships, especially when we fall in love at a young age without much experience about what being in a relationship is about. It can be pretty devastating. However, I can honestly say that experience, although it broke my heart, it broke my heart wide open and was basically the stepping stone from which I started to build my new self. And now I can't help but feel unconditional love, I'll call it, for all of existence. So it's pretty cool. I feel like partners with the universe, and that's a pretty amazing feeling. I really wish more people could get there. I know we're all on our personal journeys, and we're all getting there, and sometimes it takes some pretty devastating things to happen along the journey for us to wake up, So yeah, the sole and supreme use of suffering is to purify, to burn out all that is useless and impure. Suffering ceases for those who become pure. Now, I'm not saying I am pure, right? I'm still working with things, I'm still learning and growing, and I intend to till it's time for me to walk off this realm and head on into the next one. So Pure Spirit Rising was inspired by my aha moment of recognizing that we can nurture how our spirit grows, how we grow, how we evolve. And that's part of what this endeavor is for me to share with others insights from experiences I have, insights I have, so we can help each other blossom into the best versions of ourselves. And that's a work in progress, because I can be pretty shy sometimes, but working on it. But there can be no purpose in burning gold after the dross has been removed. And a perfectly pure and enlightened being cannot suffer. And sure, I go through some trials and tribulations still. I do live in the manifest world, and I work in customer service, so I deal with a lot of stressed out people. Mind you, I work in a beautiful place. Some of the people, anyways, they help me grow, they help me stretch. So I'm not bothered by it the way I used to be bothered by lesser things when I was younger and less aware of our strengths and our abilities. So anyway, I could go on and read from here, but that'll land me into some hot water, I'm sure. So we'll stop it there, and I'll stop rambling on and on to you, and we'll wrap this up. So thank you once again for tuning in. As always, I totally, sincerely do appreciate. I hope you got something from this, and as I continue to do these book reviews and introductions, I'm sure the presentation will become better and better. I am trying to do this on the fly without scripting things, because I want to present from a place of authenticity as much as possible. Alrighty, so as always, till our paths cross once again, stay well, be great, peace out, for now. Ciao. And here's a view of Chewy pretending to look away. I saw you, Chewy. Chewy. Where's Chewy? Chewy loves this play tunnel and cracks me up whenever she dives into it to escape me grabbing her and cuddling her. So, yep. Bye, Chewy.